Hey, this is Mick Holly. Hey, I was just having coffee yesterday morning with an old friend of mine, Charlie Johnson. Luckily, he got to the Starbucks nice and early, the massive Starbucks. And all the tables were turned on top of each other, and there were just four seats in the entire place, and it could normally seat, I don't know, 48. But luckily, he got there early, he had coffee, and we were having a good old chat and catching up. And one of the things that we were talking about was coaching employees. And my observation is, going into a lot of companies, you'll often find that there are legends in that business, and those legends might have been some great project manager who, saved the day on some big installations and delivered great clients that served the company well for years. Or indeed, a sales rainmaker. She may have been the top salesman 10 years ago and was top of the heap for 3 or 4 years. But now, she's not doing so well. In fact, she's less than average. And the great project manager is a little lackluster. But they still expect to be treated like the lords and ladies and the legends that they once were, and they expect the perks and all of those attributes, but aren't really putting in the performance. So what do you do with those people? You don't want to get rid of them. They built the very fabric of your business, but it's hellishly frustrating that they can't step up to the plate. And sometimes they don't see it. And so as I was talking to Charlie, he reminded me of a really simple matrix that you can use to really have a conversation, a coaching conversation with those people. And it's the skill versus will matrix. So on one side, on the axis, we've got will. That's your intrinsic motivation. That's your zeal. That's your enthusiasm to go after the task. And then on the bottom axis, we've got that skill. You start off with very few skills and you become able, more experienced, and having very, very high skills. And so we can break this down into four easy quadrants. So the low skill, limited skill, so the limited skill, low will people, they don't really have a lot of, intrinsic motivation. So, they're kind of your problem children. The next one is the quadrant where, they're highly motivated, they're enthusiastic, you give them the right task and they'll go after it, but they don't quite have the skills to do that in an unsupervised fashion. And these are the people that you really, really like, those people with high, go-getting, get-it-done attitude, and they've acquired the skills, they're students of their profession, and, they're your stars. And they need to be treated as such. And then the category that I opened this conversation with, which is perhaps your fading stars, and their motivation is somewhat lessened of late, and they're more passengers in the business. And so you really want to be able to have a conversation with those people. So with those different quadrants, we can talk about how we might have a constructive conversation. So with the people with very low intrinsic motivation and low skill, there are two outcomes. One, we can eject them from the business because we can't do anything with them, or we directly we have to recognize that they need a lot of direct supervision. Now they really can be quite good at doing tasks that nobody else wants to do. They're meaningful tasks, but they're not critical tasks because you're going to have to manage them, day to day. Sometimes those people are very necessary in the business, a good part of your business, but the management style is direct. But you do want to ask them, what's behind their motivation and see if you can't really get them to be a little bit more engaged in the business. Now, the novices are those ones with the high level of enthusiasm. They're great, learners. They need to be guided. We need to harness that enthusiasm and invest time in building their skills because they are the assets of the future. They are your future performing high stars if you can move them over to that top right quadrant. And the current portfolio of stars, they've got high skill, high will. You want to give them opportunities that stretch them. Just give them more and more, and they will probably surprise you as to how much that they can take on. And then our last group is that little set of passengers, and you want them to potentially become the stars that they once were. So firstly, what you want to do is have a conversation with them. And this is a good way of doing it because it allows you to have them a conversation. You can praise them, for their skills, their experience, and their capabilities, and that they're leaders in the business, and people look up to them because of their experience and skills. But then you can probe a little bit about, you don't seem quite as passionate about your role. You don't seem so committed in the business. Has something changed? Tell me a little bit about. Try and find out what that intrinsic factor is. And the second thing you can do is you can provide some incentives. These people used to compete in the past, and one way I've found is if you put a performance scorecard up for their area, they hate seeing their name down at the bottom of the list. They want to be at the top of the list. So you can rekindle those juices. And if all that else fails, perhaps they've got a little bored. They're in a rut. They don't really want to do that job anymore. And give them a different challenge. Give them a new challenge, because they've got that experience. They've got those relationships. We want to harness, that talent. And then another one, if you really want to throw something into the mix, is take one of those novices. Right, the high enthusiasm novices, and put them in together with one of these old soldiers, because the novice doesn't see barriers. They don't have these limiting beliefs, and the jaded views that the old dog might have built up over time gets kind of knocked down with the novice asking the question, well, why is that? I don't see that as a problem. Why? And you can actually, start getting some synergy between the two. Anyway, some ideas for coaching your people and getting them to perform at a higher level. Hope you found this helpful. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.